The terms occult and esoteric both imply something hidden, so there will not be much focus on the obvious, and we will be approaching this subject using spiritual discernment and occult overstanding in order to find things out which have been hidden from the public's view. These are not things which will be agreed upon by academically approved scholastic sources, which are by and large sources which are controlled by the very same interests which stand to gain some advantage by keeping things hidden from, and at times in, plain sight. So in the interests of full disclosure, I am from the neighborhoods of Detroit, where banging, for whatever reasons, did not flourish, despite the high crime element there. However, I was in my 20s during the time of gangster rap and the promotion of gangster culture in the 90s, and I can bear witness to its definite negative effect on my community and others like it. So even if you agree to disagree with the things presented here, please do it like an OG, not a baby G. Try not to get in your feelings. I will not fake like I've ever bought a Nipsey record, or like I even knew one of his songs prior to this investigation into his connection with the occult organization we call the Brotherhood, and many call by the blanket term, the Illuminati.
Would you all please welcome the president of the Cal O'Connor Fan Club.
Nipsey Russell at Dean Martin's celebrity roast clown and Carol O'Connor, who played Archie Bunker. Roasts are light-hearted humiliation rituals, mock sacrifices of people's character, and a form of duping delight by and for Brotherhood members because they often say things that are true in a joking manner.
When the Supreme Court said integrate, they meant everything. Everybody has a great ambition. We want to be singers, dancers, writers, and musicians. I just want to be a mule somewhere in the clover and catch Archie Bunker bending over.
Who is Nipsey Hussle? Well, besides being a character in the WWE-like world of entertainment, where stars take on names that often have double meaning and where their God-given names are often not a part of public record, he played the role of Keeper of the Crypt and kept alive the dying gang culture that movies like Colors helped popularize nationwide in the early 90s. Many of today's artists claim to be blood gang members or affiliates, although those most familiar with the culture would report that these latecomers are largely used as fodder for forms of extortion. Those who followed the rise in popularity of secret societies in the millennial era noted the decline in banging as it was once defined by the gangster rap fad of the 90s and the early 2000s that turned the mostly regionalized practice into a worldwide trend and phenomenon, much to the distaste of the so-called OGs and founders of the prominent sets. Nipsey Hussle was a throwback to that era, and next to the commercialized branding of Snoop Dogg, he had become arguably the most recognizable face of Crippin' for the modern era. He died at age 33, on the 31st, an inversion of 13, and the eve of April Fool's Day, a celebration of the spring equinox. The elite always use occult mythology, which often relates to numerology, astrology, and or etymology. Now, gematria is sometimes a marker, but with so many different forms of gematria, it's harder to tell if a researcher is actually finding gematria that fits the argument that they want to defend on purpose, or if the event itself is purposefully marked with gematria by the powers that should not be. It kind of becomes a one-size-fits-all solution, and it absolves lazy conspiracy researchers of the responsibility of having spiritual discernment as well as a working knowledge about the ancient and most common occult practices of the Brotherhood in lieu of creative gematria. His first formal album dropped after 6 years of teasing. He was shot 6 times, a rolling 60s gang member. 6 people were stabbed at the vigil in the initial report. 6 family members of the so-called shooter were killed in the initial report. Thank you, Sister Minister T. We're told Nipsey Hussle's real name was HERMES Ashgadam. Now, in the spelling of Gaddafi, the GH represents the hard K sound. So therefore his last name can be broken down to Ask Edom, or quite simply Ask Edom. And you can ask yourself, who are the Edomites? Certainly that may be up for debate, but this should not be. The brother in the far right corner of this picture has his hands in the pyramid position that is commonly used by operatives in the news that tells Brotherhood members that this is yet another story laced with the magic and manipulation of the builders, aka the Freemasons. And remember, the news and major magazines don't pick thumbnails the way that you and I do. Note the pyramid in the drawn picture of Nipsey shown in the far left of this photograph. Both this and the prior picture was caught and submitted by Brother Minister San Pablo's 39. I guess a cap can get peeled back and forward. This hat so happens to land right side up and facing where a clean and clear shot can be taken, coincidentally. Here the West Coast MC performs in New York, wearing the red, white, and blue of Freemasonry, which happens to also be the red and blue of the Scottish Rite and York Rite lodges. The white represents the false light of Lucifer. Also it represents, together, the sun god, the red, the moon or water matter or mother, the blue, and the false Christ child, the pure white, also symbolized by royal purple. Red and blue mixed together, coming together to make the child. And the gang colors are coincidentally connected to the flag colors, which are also coincidentally connected to the colors of the Brotherhood. Now, TMC was Hustle's clothing line and store. Its logo was a stylized American flag. Was TMC a code for the Crip gang or Brotherhood affiliated to identify and relate to, like MOB was a code for the Blood gang affiliated to identify with or relate to? And how will his death affect this business? Yelp reviews of the store's service and delivery practices were overwhelmingly terrible before the shooting. I'd bet business has improved, and Lauren London is happy about it. To have had the longevity that he did in today's rap climate is notable, especially when huge segments of hip-hop listeners did not know your music, nor was it in heavy rotation in the streets or on commercial radio. Yet he was kept relevant via media and through the constantly repeated claim that he helped his community. This kept his name in circulation. And I'm telling you, as a person who happens to come from a platinum station city, Detroit, never heard a single song on the radio. And even bigger than that, didn't hear the nephews bumping it. You know, the same young men that would play Doughboy Cash Out, you would expect might have been bumping Nipsey. They wasn't. Now, let's look at the artist's first name, although official sources will point us in another direction. Users and contributors to a name-meaning website have came up with the name means God will rise and may be of African origin. But every student of the Hermetic theater here should have recognized that HERMIAS is obviously a Greco-Romanized form of HERMIAS, the trickster, jester, joker, or fool. HERMES. Hermes, Janus, Gemini, the genie, god of the muses, lord over entertainment, acting, musing, and taking on various personas and images, playing various roles, emptying oneself of emotion so that you can be a vessel through which the spirits can flow, causing you to give a greater performance than if you were filled with your own heart, mind, and soul. So how does a young man, a gangbanger of the age of 33, get the name of an old school comedian that's hardly popular or known today? One of the homies gave it to him, they say. But you have HERMIAS Nipsey Russell, born August 15th, 1 and 5, 6. Born in Los Angeles, the West Coast capital for entertainment. And you have Julius Nipsey Russell, born September 15th, 1 and 5 is 6. Born in Atlanta, the southern capital for entertainment. And we won't mention that 8 and 5 is 13, and 1 plus 8 is 9, and inverted 6. Young people today barely know who Nipsey Russell was, and even fewer identify with him, as he is a throwback to old Hollywood and a time when performers, especially black ones, had to exhibit hermeticism on the highest levels in order to receive any accolades, fame, or measure of fortune. This meant singing, dancing, acting, and being a comedian. Hermes, Janus, or Gemini is indeed the spirit of the theater. Laugh now, cry later, comedy, tragedy, and the spirit of entertainment. And the gatekeepers who truly pick and choose who will be allowed to be famous and receive a push on the platforms that are run by the said elite are not atheists, nor are they Christians, but they are occultists and Luciferians who believe in the stars. So astrology plays a huge part in the sacrifices, rituals, and hoaxes that they force the celebrated entertainers to engage in. Their lives are staged, not unlike a real-life Hunger Games. Hollywood squares may have marked him as a man on his square, and Pyramid and Match Game were very brotherhoodish in their own rights. But Mr. Russell's most notable role was likely in the black urban adaptation of MK Ultra programming tool, The Wizard of Oz, marketed to the ghetto as The Wiz. He portrayed the Tin Man, which was a representation of the industrial worker who droned on for 8 to 12-hour shifts like a robot and lived a robotic or mechanical type of existence. This was a character designed in the image of the modern factory worker or military soldier, whose work requires a mechanical mindset, and who through rigid and unnatural adherence to protocol gradually loses touch with the passions or natural desires of the human heart, rendering them cold, unfeeling, and detached like the Tin Man. In The Wiz, the idea is expanded upon in the Tin Man's inability to choose a suitable woman for himself, and instead he opts for a woman who is either overbearing, takes advantage of him, or is just as mechanical and subsequently breaks his dysfunctional heart and or toys with his barely existent feelings. Nipsey was the Tin Man in the movie version of The Wiz and was a robotic showman devoid of feeling. Nipsey's signature song could be considered a soldier's or a gangster's theme song, If I Could Feel, sung by Tiger Haynes in the Broadway version. The official languages of Eritrea, Tigrinya and Tigra, coincidentally. The memorable tune has been sampled at least 14 times, most notably by industry pawns Nas and Insane Clown Posse.
Squeeze, brother. Can you give me a hand?
Dorothy. How terrible. Don't move.
Don't worry, I wasn't planning any promenades.
We'll be right back. He's so brave. He's probably in shock.
Oh, what I wouldn't give to be in shock just once.
I'm so sorry.
No apology necessary. I told you nothing hurts me. I have no feelings. The genius who created me only took care of my dashing good looks, my razor-sharp wit, and my irresistible attraction to the wrong women. What he forgot to add was a heart.
But everyone has a heart.
Alas, everyone but yours truly.
Hello?
Nobody home in Soulville.
From notorious so-called blood Illuminati pawn Lil Wayne to noted so-called Crip Nipsey Hussle, Laura London, former video vixen turned B-level actress, followed the Badu magic formula for success and became baby mama for both successful rappers. Blue flag Crip Nip, wearing the colors of the Satanic Church, whose reach is far and definitely has its grips in more than a pound of flesh of both rappers and models alike. Was LL, Laura London, who's claimed to have been obsessed with Tupac, was she the teenie to Nipsey's Tin Man?
How does that feel? But that's the whole tragic point, my friends. What would I do if I could suddenly feel and to know once again that what I feel is real? I could cry, I could smile, I might lay back for a while. Tell me what would I do? I could feel, what would I do if I could reach inside of me and to know how it feels to say, I like what I see, then I'd be more than glad to share all that I have inside of here, and the songs my heart might bring, you'd be more than glad to sing. And if tears should fall from my eyes, just think of all the wounds they could mend, and just think of all the time I could spend just being vulnerable again. Tell me what would I do? Oh, tell me what would I do? Oh, tell me what would I do if I could feel?
Back to mind control.
The signs are everywhere.
Themes like The Wizard of Oz, Red Shoes.
MK Ultra rules in Hollywood.
Please be the dog bag.
Don't you want to go with rainbow and rainbow
What is the connection between Wizard of Oz and an ancient form of mind control? Why did Stanley Kubrick include references to going where the rainbow ends in his film Eyes Wide Shut? And what role might the red shoes play in this bizarre subculture? Like Oz itself, the movie has its own dark side, a land of occult philosophy, government mind control programs, and more. So hold on, because we're not in Kansas anymore. Trauma-based mind control, also known as monarch mind control, uses dissociation to create a total mind-controlled slave.
Through hypnosis, mind control, brainwashing, you create a new identity in a person. You create an amnesia barrier between their ordinary identity and the new identity or altered personality. The newly created identity can be used for actual operations, that is, explosives, infiltration, surveillance.
This is what the CIA perfected under Operation MKUltra.
The goal remained the same. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
Almost all documentation relating to MKUltra or monarch mind control mentions the importance of the movie Wizard of Oz. After World War II, the United States continued Nazi mind control projects, bringing over top Nazi scientists to continue their heinous experiments. It was in the late 40s that the movie Wizard of Oz was chosen as a programming script for the intelligence community's mind control program. Programming scripts provide the thematic foundation upon which alters and triggers are created.
When they program, they layer in the programming, they use a lot of, some of the base programs are your Alien scripts, your Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz. Those are very common base programming scripts. And also Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Trek's a big one.
They had very sophisticated programming themes. Themes like The Wizard of Oz and Over the Rainbow and Dolphins and Whales and Hearts and Roses and Monarch Butterflies, and if you know what they are, you'll know a lot of how it works, and you'll be able to see it in the media. You'll be able to see the themes when they talk about Over the Rainbow. You'll know that a lot of us were programmed not to remember what happened over the rainbow. What happened over the rainbow was all the government stuff that was then hidden as they attempted to confuse fact with fantasy and keep all of this totally and completely hidden.
To mentally escape the abuse, victims of this type of mind control dissociate. In Wizard of Oz programming, this is when they go over the rainbow, where there is no trouble, or in Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass. Disgraced DC lobbyist Tony Podesta's artwork became the topic of online controversy after disturbing images of his sadistic paintings came to light. But it was one thing in particular that left researchers baffled: the preponderance of red shoes depicted throughout. Could this be referring to Wizard of Oz, ruby slippers, and monarch programming?
Yes. The occult, the Illuminati, basically the same thing. They're obsessed with symbolism. And another interesting tie-in with the red shoes is that the Illuminati, the elites, they use the Wizard of Oz to mind control child slaves. They use different media. Alice in Wonderland's another one. They use different Disney movies and certain films to program children. And part of the programming is they abuse them because the abuse splits their personality and creates different personalities. So then they are able to program them and control them, and they virtually become it's called MK Ultra programming. And this is a known thing. It's something the CIA has been doing for years, and you can find this on the internet. The CIA was forced to declassify documents that prove that they were conducting these kinds of tests and experiments and mind controlling people. But they use the Wizard of Oz to mind control these child sex abuse victims. Well, what does Dorothy wear in the Wizard of Oz? Red shoes.
The victim will be dressed according to their programming. So for some victims, seeing red shoes in the right setting could be enough to trigger a switch back into a dissociative state. Illuminati monarch slaves are taught they must follow the yellow brick road. Regardless of what lies ahead, they are not to stray from the path laid out for them. Winged monkeys reinforce a fear of always being watched. Similar to Dorothy and Toto, monarch victims will be allowed to bond with a pet. Sometimes the pet will be killed to further cause dissociation. With a level of emotion typically reserved for the death of a loved one, Ellen DeGeneres broke down on her show over a dog being taken from a family. Researchers have suggested there could be more than meets the eye to Ellen's overreaction.
And because I did it wrong, those people went and took that dog out of their home. I shouldn't have given the dog away. Just please give the dog back to those little girls. I'm sorry. I didn't call you. I'm sorry. I did the wrong thing.
The threat of killing or taking away the pet will be used to control the slave. The poppy field is an allusion to opium, which is used to tranquilize MK slaves. Dorothy is awakened by snow, a not-so-veiled reference to cocaine, a substance commonly given to monarch slaves to help make them dependent. These classic programming scripts are constantly being refreshed and remade for new generations. Popular movies are chosen so that triggers and code words can be used openly, with few outsiders ever being the wiser. For instance, in Eyes Wide Shut, Bill Harford is asked by a couple of elite sex slaves, "Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?"
Where the rainbow ends.
Where the rainbow ends.
Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?
Later, Harford goes to a costume shop called Rainbow Fashions. On the other side, he finds a father selling his daughter. The connections between Wizard of Oz rainbow symbolism and mind control / human trafficking are unmistakable.
The signs are everywhere. Sometimes you just have to take a second look. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery, and it happens in our own communities.
The Wizard of Oz itself is full of occult themes and ideologies. So much so that notorious Satanist Aleister Crowley wrote a document called Liber 777, or Book of Oz. Frank L. Baum, the author, was himself part of the Theosophical Society. The Theosophical Society was founded by famed Luciferian Madame Blavatsky, who is admired by Satanists such as Marina Abramovic. Baum wrote various theosophical themes and allegories into the Oz stories themselves. Oz is actually short for Osiris, one of the gods of the Egyptian mystery religions. Professor Marvel, who is later seen as the wizard, claims his crystal ball is the same one used by the priests of Isis and Osiris.
Sit right down here. That's it. This is the same genuine, magic, authentic crystal used by the priests of Isis and Osiris in the days of the pharaohs of Egypt.
One of the greatest secrets of these ancient mystery schools was the ability to use hypnosis and torture to create compartmentalized personalities, mind-controlled slaves. All around us in everyday life, there is another world. Its symbols and traditions rooted in ancient occultism and hidden in plain sight. A world to which we ordinary people are not privy. But every once in a while, those with eyes that see just might catch a glimpse at the other side of the rainbow. So what do you think? If you're like me, you always felt something a little creepy about this movie.
But who got hustled? Today, the slang hustle means to work hard. An example, Charlie hustle, or to have a side job. But the hustler was an old school term for one who finessed or conned his way into fortune. And whenever we, and I'm including me because I did so back in the days with Run, DMC, Rakim, Egg B, PE, and EPMD, whenever we believe in idols and the images projected unto mortals who are placed above us as stars, we are the ones getting hustled. Even when the idol in question is Charlie Hustle himself, referring to E40's assumption of baseball legend Pete Rose's nickname. Here he's standing on his square and wearing the red, white, and blue too. And if you want your own clothing store or high-end brand or top-of-the-line wine, this is what you must do too. Be woke for real. It takes more than game or affiliation with a gang to receive the keys that open the doors to corporate America, playboy. Al Capone did a lot for his community. So did the Purple Gang and the YBI. For that matter, so did Frank Lucas and fictional false flaggers like Nino Brown. Gangsters, dope dealers, pimps, human traffickers, players, con men, numbers runners, and hustlers figured out long ago that you can last longer in a short-lived game by paying off the people around you in the form of philanthropy, which satisfies the few who benefit from Thanksgiving turkeys or small-time jobs just enough to keep their mouths shut. As a younger man, I too benefited from these meager handouts. It kept those who would be considered of ill repute from being told on. So they figured, why not spend a few pennies, relative to what they made and threw away, and give back, quote unquote, just so they could continue making mounds of money by vampiring off the souls of the majority of the people of their own community. Never mind the households destroyed and children neglected by drugs, which for all contemporary crime is the main source of income and has been for decades. Stop playing. Only the most out of touch, on the porch, in denial, convicted, guilty, or triggered sheeple parrot that line of bull rush these days. Wake up for real. They might get it from the mud, but they keep it by the blood. And they won't tell you that the key to their success is being a part of secret orders and secret societies. So you wouldn't know respect if it came up and bit you on your shin. You romanticizing gangsterism. Now Hustle's connections to Eritrea, African Semites, and to the modern Israelite community known as South Central could have made him a legitimate force for righteousness if he had truly renounced the wickedness that is gangbanging, and if he had the bravery and knowledge that it takes to tell the truth about the satanic and brotherhood-built origins of the practice we know of today as banging. The sad fact is that the origins of the two prominent gangs in his city stem from community organizations that were set up to serve and protect, not terrorize the inner city. Perhaps a better documentary that would have really had an immediate and positive effect on the younger generation would have been one that exposed that fact, one that is much less known and not as popular to reveal nowadays than healthy, electric, vegan, or natural eating, which is a very popular trend. When a thing truly has wicked roots, is it wise to think that righteousness can be done by way of it? It is like an initiate who thinks he can change the world for the better from within the Illuminati. The gang-banging culture is being revived so that the streets can be re-indoctrinated with the Babylonian mystery system as part of the grand chessboard scheme in these last days.
Every day you got to deal with the choices. It's a regret. It's like a pile of regrets that stay on the gangster head. And if you're a gangbanger without regrets, you probably never even did shit. You know what I'm saying? Niggas be lying, then they go home and live these fake lies on the internet where everybody think it's all positive and shit. But I know the real, man, and I know how deep the gangbanging shit go, because I done did it forever, for my whole life, you know. I ain't new to this shit. Niggas know me. I'm well known out here. The big homie Bogart, you know what I'm saying, salute, that's another G homie that's 100. Big homie Bogart was doing an interview back in the days on Raymond and Howard with the news people. And they was, you know, questioning him about the lanes and all that. And the nigga wind up making like a accidental typo saying some devil lane type shit, like not knowing it was Denver the whole time. So once it started spreading, the news and the propaganda behind it associated with it, the homies I adapted the identity. Thought it was kind of so business. The devil lanes is hard. Yeah, we feeling that whole title. We feeling that swag. But then you had the homies in the biddy that was like, you know, it's Denver, my nigga. What's the devil lane shit? You know what I'm saying? You can't be mad at them because in a sense they might feel like that's separation. So, but you still got homies that's devil lanes. You got homies that's devil lanes. But niggas need to understand it. Listen to me now. It's all the same. Period. You disrespect a devil, you disrespect a Denver. You disrespect a mafia, you disrespect it's all the same shit. So niggas shouldn't have to say that more than once, you feel what I'm saying? It's not rocket science. If you ain't strong mentally, they can easily influence you, you know what I'm saying? And that's why the little homies be getting fucked in their head, because the big homies grab them up and plant that seed of mistrust and disloyalty, you know what I'm saying? Fuck their whole structure off. So yeah, when I was a young nigga, I don't want to put the homie name out there, he resting in peace anyway now. But he kind of introduced me to some shit that was a little dark side, you know, it's a little evil. We was on some satanic worship shit. And I was actually doing that for, man, about maybe 7-8 years. I was heavy into the satanic worship. My mom and my family thought I was crazy and shit, you know. I'm talking to the preachers left and right, asking is heaven open for niggas like me? And they can't even give me an answer, you know what I'm saying? And if you ask me how I got in this shit, man, I can honestly say I just I wanted power at a young age. I wanted to be balling like the rest of the niggas. I don't want to be out here on no struggle nigga shit. So if a nigga tell me the easiest way to fame is to commit myself to Satan, at that point in my life, that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? That's what I did, and I don't have no regrets on doing that because it made me who I am.
I'm from Athens Park, Bloods. Everybody calls me Bone. I've been there for pretty much my whole banging career. I also claim the jungle stone, black stones. I'm real tight with the black stones, so I always had like a double affiliation with two different neighborhoods, both being Bloods. Athens Park and the jungle are together. They're like our brother set. You know what I mean? So I've always bounced between both these neighborhoods, you know what I mean? And yeah, pretty much that's who I am on the streets. Bone from Athens Park, or some people say Bone from the jungle. You know. How old are you? 34. 34, but I've been doing this since 12 years old, 13 years old. I've been doing this day in, day out, year in, year out. It's been a big part of my life. Too much of my life, basically. And like I said, I don't know, maybe God has like a force field on me to even last this long, to be able to talk about it.
As Malcolm X said, by any means necessary.
Bloods and the Crips, they said that we're not gonna deal with that like that. You hit me, I'm hitting you back. You shoot me, I'm shooting you back. So they wasn't going for it no more.
Some of those things have been derailed. You know, this makes you say, what could have been?
Out of school is the frustration in trying to plug into
School and youth aid budgets continue to shrink, and California falls from 9th to 33rd
Everybody
place.
that go to the school almost is engaged.
Children are turning away from their parents, and they're getting involved with the
Every
gang.
year you get more blood, every year you get more Crips, you lose more Crips, you lose more blood. It's a cycle that's going on.
I was 4 when my father died. I remember confusion. I remember a lot of confusion, but not the incident really. I think I remember somebody covering my ears or my eyes. I remember confusion. How did we get to this point?
Destroyed my whole world.
Who were the first Bloods, and you know, who were the first Crips or whatever,
My
you know?
son Bone, he loved football.
How we get to this fucked up situation where everybody's like, all my partners is dying.
Went to church faithfully.
I buried a lot of my friends. I've been shot myself, you know, and our whole community is intoxicated
We're
with
doing
fear
just what
over
they
this.
want us to do, you know, killing each other, you know what I mean? We're playing right into the system hands.
Then he was a Blood.
Bone, what are the Athens Park Bloods? What does that mean?
Athens Park Bloods, a part of the community in Los Angeles, based kind of like by El Segundo, Broadway. It's a big park where a lot of communities network to. People call us a gang, you know, some people call us, you know, organization.
What do you call it?
I would call us an unorganized organization.
How long you been a member?
Since I was like 12, 13.
How did he get in the gang? What started him, and how did he get out? Because people
He's still
say
in,
once you
you're
get
right.
in the gang, you can't get out.
He is still in because he's working from within to change it.
I figure you gotta make a change from inside the gang, you know. I think that's part of the problem. Some of the success stories of gang members who go on to do good, they leave the gang, that's just that. I figure I'll make a change inside the gangs. I don't want to break up the gang, I want to change the directions of gangs. That's one of the misconceptions. You can get out. You know, all you gotta do is just walk away and just, you know, be a man about it and walk away.
They're not gonna do anything to you.
You know, that's that Hollywood theory that, you know, you can't get out. I'm like the 4th or 5th generation. And I started asking my partners, you know, how did this come about that we started killing each other? And far as they would take me back, it was like 1972, over, you know, some fight over a leather jacket. And I knew that there had to be more to it. And as I found out, there was a lot more to it. I've been digging and digging and trying to get to the core of it. How did we get to this point? So I started really trying to search out how did this get started. You know what I mean? I really went to my peers, went to guys older than me. I learned about the migration to Los Angeles to find better jobs. And like I said, to escape the prejudice and this that was going on in the South. I met up with the guys at Edison, California Cultural Center down on Vermont and I think Western, somewhere down there. And they started explaining to me about how their generation came to LA.
Majority of the blacks was coming from the South then. And after the war, the train was called the Argonaut. It was a train that stopped at every little town from Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. Before it got to Union Station, it was stopped by Central Avenue, and all the black people had to get off.
And they came here because they were trying to escape racism, and for economic reasons, a lot of factories were hiring. They got here, and a lot of prejudice here and racism here as far as the job markets and as far as blacks buying homes and moving into certain neighborhoods they weren't allowed to. Racism was alive and kicking right here in Los Angeles. So I'm sure they were pretty shocked about that.
LA was just clamped down on blacks and Mexicans. You were just limited.
Everybody doesn't live with rats and roaches. And everybody doesn't have to live like that. Why do we live that way? Because of the way that we were brought to this country.
We were slaves for 300 years. We was chattel property. After that, we were free, and then we were segregated.
For 400 years, black labor built the United States. All of a sudden, it's no longer needed. You know, so sorry. I mean, there's something different about being poor in LA than there is anywhere up in the world. You're right up against it. It's all there in front of you, and you can't have any of it.
You don't have to live in the projects to get swooped up in this war.
You know, we had clothes and, you know, everything we wanted, you know. I didn't come from like a poor family, not a rich family, but if I asked for something, I could get it.
So it wasn't poverty that drove you into?
Oh, hell no. It was a choice I made. Wasted a lot of time, man. Wasted too much time. Wasted half my life. If I could have used some of that energy in another direction, then, you know, tell them what I could have did, I think. Being one of the guys who was hands-on, who helped destroy most of my community, who participated in self-genocide, I want to be able to put some clarity on why some of these things have happened. Trying to get to the core of how we got to where we're at now. You know what I'm saying? When you heard banging got started, what year? Was it the 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s that you heard about?
I heard about the 60s.
I remember back in them days, I used to just hear about it as a youngster, though.
Before y'all, you know what I'm saying? I always wondered how that shit used to be, you know what I'm saying? But I can't really
You know what I'm saying? Tell you how the shit used to be. I wouldn't ran, you know what I'm saying?
First incident I heard of was like in the 70s.
Ours started in a certain way. Then we got our OG homies that's older than us. They started in a different way.
I really don't know how it started.
You ever wonder about that, though?
Yeah, I always wonder about that.
There wasn't nothing else to do. I mean, dedicated to life.
I think if I could get, like, some of the truth, you know what I'm saying, the homies that's coming up behind us, I can show maybe the origin we came out of before us. That's why I always question my mind. I ask the homies.
They don't even question why are they what they are. Really, in most cases, they just come up, and now it's like a fad to them. And then, like I said, until one of them are injured, and then they become serious.
What's the future for the young homies coming behind us?
The pressure on a kid can be tremendous in the neighborhood to do something. You know, because once he says this is who he is, and I'm banging for Athens, or I'm banging for the jungle, or I'm banging for whatever set, then, you know, people around him like, okay, what you gonna do? Do something. Let me see.
You ain't scared to die?
No.
Why not?
Die sooner or later.
Anyway, huh?
Somebody slid me a book. It was called City of Quartz. And it was about this cat, Mike Davis. I just got out the county jail and I was reading it, and I seen a map, and it had 1972 LAPD's gang hotspots. And I saw my neighborhood on there, and I got like proud. And I started reading into it and started talking about how the different fractions, how Los Angeles got divided up, and how, you know what I'm saying, there was only 6 original blood sets and the rest was Crips. And I started taking that book around, showing my homies, like, look, homie, we on the map. And that's what got my wheels a spinning, what actually really happened. So I found Mike Davis, and then, you know, I kind of sat down with him and talked to him, and he kind of like explained a lot of Los Angeles and the whole how it was set up.
You could argue in the late 40s and 50s, probably the most exciting, important thing happening musically was on Central Avenue, where rhythm and blues was born.
Central Avenue would and should have been a cultural landmark.
Lot of action, lot of action. Downtown Hotel, Downbeat, The Last Word, Nemo's. I got out here in 1942, and I've been going out there ever since. From 42 to 50, it was jumping.
Central Avenue paid for all the police vacations and retirements. Central Avenue Vice Squad was basically the, you know, the money collectors for the LAPD. And they basically ran, you know, a protection and extortion racket on the clubs. They had to pay off the LAPD. The LAPD took millions out of, you know, the black community and the black music scene in the, you know, in the 1940s before Parker took over. Under Chief Parker's reign, he declared war on race mixing on Central Avenue and set about deliberately to destroy, you know, the most vital music scene in the country. You know, those were the days where the LAPD, of course, recruited police in the South. They went down and looked for Southern whites that had been in the Army and Marine Corps and you know, and brought them out here. I mean,
straight to the LAPD.
Yeah, I mean, Parker had in mind exactly what kind of police force, you know, he wanted. Parker was, of course, not corrupt. He was just, you know, a steadfast, you know, racist. So where did the first black gangs appear? Well, if you start reading through the files of the old California Eagle, which was a magnificent community paper, the major African-American paper in LA, from 1946 to 1950, there was a really powerful civil rights movement in Los Angeles, and people were fighting to break out of the Central Avenue ghetto, to move south of Slauson, to move to the west, beginning to more integrate the high schools.
Compton was white, you know, great part of South Central was white, Inglewood was white, Gardena was white.
First black kid to move into that area moved on 62nd and Hooper in 1946. There were Italians, there were Germans, there were Russians, Armenians, Lithuanians, what they call Croatians and Serbs. When you can't live where you want to live, when you can't go where you want to go without someone saying something to you, there's a problem. And every day I was called names with no brothers and sisters, so I began with a bad attitude. And I began fighting the little white kids every day.
And you can track literally week by week attacks on black kids in the high schools and in junior high schools. And what you see emerging are black youth fighting back against attacks by white gangs and beginning to create, you know, what they didn't call gangs at the time. They were just groups of kids united to fight off, you know, the people who stoned them when they came to school or ambushed them after school.
The whites were predominant in the area, so we banded together at Slauson Park.
There were well-organized white gangs, some of which then continued and lived on for 20 more years, like the infamous Spook Hunters.
We used to get attacked by white boys, namely a group called Spook Hunters, who were all over Inglewood, Southgate, Linwood, Hollywood, Maywood, and all the other woods.
Yeah, they had a gang called the Spook Hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah. We shut them down. They had a black man hanging on the back of their jacket with a rope.
Spook Hunters was a umbrella term. That was a term like, you know, black people are spooks or whatever, and we're white boys, and we're gonna catch them. What exactly happened?
Well, the white boys in them 41 Fords cut down, would ride by and call you all nigger, this, that, and another. And we fought with them.
Once I learned about these white gangs, I learned about the response to these white gangs. A gang called the Slausons, a gang called the Farmers, the Businessmen, a gang called the Gladiators. These were all black gangs. And I learned about these famous gang members back then.
I started to hear about Bird and about Chinaman. And these are Slausons, and it dawned on me, and me and my buddies on the block, we're in the Slauson area, so it's starting at the end of grammar school. We said, well, we're gonna be Slausons.
We are from the South, so when we come to the city, we was confused about prejudice.
Racism and prejudice was the order of the day. It happened every day.
We couldn't go there, we couldn't go here, we couldn't go that. So I call us, we're not gangs, we are the pioneers.
Right.
That open up Los Angeles where that we can be in Centinela Park, where we could be across Crenshaw.
And Gardena, Inglewood, these existing gangs, the Slausons, the Gladiators, the Businessmen, who kind of like fought the white boys throughout the city. Then there's no white boys to fight.
Jesse Owens Park used to be called Sportsman's Park. From 61 to 63, we fought the white cats from Inglewood because they said that blacks couldn't come swimming in the swimming pool. So eventually we got the park. Eventually the name changed, not because we were the toughest or the baddest, but because after, you know, during those 60s, it was the white flight movement, and they started leaving anyway.
Everybody's kind of boxed in on top of each other, and I think that's kind of led to tensions, kind of led to rivalries.
Being a Slauson, we kind of said we had a ticket to the world, you know, because wherever we go, we made that the village.
When the Slausons pulled up, like sometimes they pull up over at Dorsey, and like they pull up, it may be 30 cars.
Pretty soon, these black gangs kind of turned on each other.
Just sit around the park and, you know, we just think about Slauson or something. We jump in the cars and just ride wherever we heard they was gonna be at and go and start a squabble with them.
Somebody get knocked out, black eye, beat up, you know, something like that.
But it wasn't into the killing thing.
They'll tell them a guy shot a guy, a guy cut a guy, man. I mean, that would just send them paper with buzz with that for weeks, you know? And that wouldn't happen.
I was a thug. I was a straight guy. I loved the gang. Man, him too. I jump on the highest building. I'm a gladiator who don't like it. That's what I'm looking for. I loved the gang. I lived for the gang, you know. I defied my family for the gang. Most of my life, 24 years, I was in prison. I just got to doing 12 years and 9 months. When I left, my son was a little baby. When I got back out, he was grown. He just got killed last year. We choose to live not by the law. We got death or we got institution. Mine was institution, his was death.
Identity politics has given way to a much deeper problem, polarity politics, where it is expected that you must be on one far side of an issue or the other in order to just have an opinion or to even feel comfortable discussing a subject. It really makes me sad and sick because most oftentimes the truth is lost somewhere in the middle. But the illuminated keep it hidden in plain sight by encouraging you to see things as either all the way left or all the way right, or black or white. The Hegelian mind control continues. Yes, Big Pharma doesn't want you to abandon them. Yes, changing of the diet can improve health in many, if not most cases. But yes, you are deceived if you think that length of life is gained by diet. The scripture says otherwise, and you cannot serve two masters, for you will love the one and hate the other. So choose you this day who you will serve. The Almighty can cast both soul and meat-free body into the hottest hell. And yes, those who practice witchcraft live by the lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, and the pride of life. And their hope is that in their careful eating that they may cheat death or extend life beyond the boundaries set for them at birth by the Most High through some eating practice, sometimes abominable. Jesus served fish. Witches and warlocks need to follow the recipes of the fallen in order to have a quality of life that a believer may obtain simply by merry heart and by honoring their mother and father. I didn't write the book. I'm just telling you what it say. Put it where it go. Make communion your every meal. Fast often and always pray. The devil you know versus the devil you don't know. When the treatments are as deadly as or deadlier than the illness, does it take a genius to know that being watchful and prayerful concerning one's diet is a better alternative? But put it where it go. Luke 10:7. And in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house, trying to find somebody that's making tofu or something gluten-free. Man shall not live by bread alone. Matthew 4:4. Balance it out and rightly divide his entire word of truth. No cherry picking based on what you prefer, what you want to hear, what tickles your ear. Perhaps he had good intentions, though Left Eye died while seeking his help. And now we are told HERMIAS is dead due to being connected. Is it because of the danger that Dr. Sebi proposed and the challenge that he presented to Big Pharma? Or is it something more occult and supernatural in nature? Does the hexagram on his shirt in this still shot, or the Ankh in his other lectures, or the infinity symbol embedded in the video mean well? Whether Sebi was deceived into believing these symbols and signs could be used by witches for wickedness as well as by us for healing, or not. Many folks who have a Pan-African point of view tend to believe these things can be used by witches and warlocks as well as by the well-intended. Maybe they're wrong.
careful what you wish for. You might fuck around and get that shit.
Feel like I sold my fucking soul to the devil for these palm trees and these 6 foes. Nip.
Feel like I sold my fucking soul to the devil for these palm trees and these 6 folks.
Cedar,
6 up,
wife beater,
wrist froze, platinum Jesus piece.
Nigga mine all gold.
Chuck.
Feel like I sold my fucking soul to the devil for these palm trees and these 6 foes.
When you come from depression to the lust for possessions, gotta make an impression, but you can't wait for your blessing. Model bitches strip naked while I sip on this Texas. I'm pushing this German, Jesus piece on my necklace. These niggas gon' test you, and these bitches is reckless. And that money go fast, I hope you paying your taxes. All the questions they ask you, all the cameras that's flashing, all the stress that come with it. It's like you hustling backwards if you ain't breaking the bank. So we go hard every day, and the sacrificial lamb is just the part that you play. When you the first one in your fam to have the heart to get paid, had the smarts to switch lanes, had the guts to be brave. And now you a star on the stage. And once they cut on them lights, no turning them off, that's part of the game. Wow, people caught up in your fame, and never will it be the same. This shit is expensive, the price that we pay, that's why I
feel like I sold my fucking soul to the devil for these palm trees and these 6 foes.
Will we find the state of Eritrea in the news more now, or just more of a worldwide call to control the right to bear arms from New Zealand to Africa to the ghettos of America? The official state animal is a camel, and the laurel wreath is often seen worn by Caesar and is a symbol of Apollo, which represents a God-given right to rule the empire and ultimately victory. Perhaps Hustle was symbolically announcing his final go-round, that he would no longer be like a tiger in a cage or a sacrificial lamb, but he would see himself as a victor in the real-life Hunger Games that take place in the Hermetic theater of entertainment.
He was so decrepit.
No.